What is going on, all of you informed gamers out there in the world? I'm Mega Am, so thank you for watching this video, whether you are a new or returning viewer. Appreciate you stopping by. Today's video is going to be, I guess, a little bleak. We'll see. Recently, Gamescom Opening Night Live happened, hosted by Jeff Keighley, the 2-hour-long event where he kind of showcases, similar to the Summer Game Fest and Game Awards presentations, kicks off Gamescom with 2 hours of announcements for different games coming up. And this year's in particular, I've seen the sentiment a lot online and also feel this way myself. A lot of it feels disingenuous. There's mixed messaging going on with what Jeff Keighley says he and the team are trying to support in the gaming industry and help support developers. Very much contrasted to the actual announcements shown. And this has been going on for a while, but it really rubbed me kind of a really wrong way this year, and I want to go deep into this further. So let's talk about it here. Let's switch over here. No shade necessarily to Gamescom itself as an event. I know a lot of people enjoy Gamescom. It's pretty much the biggest global event right now for gaming going on. And so it's a situation of, you know, people are going out and playing demos and stuff. This is specifically talking about the announcements during the opening night live presentation, where we have this situation, shout out to Kyle Bossman, by the way, where this has been going on for a while. Jeff's been hosting these events forever, and there's always been criticism around these events, Game Awards, Summer Game Fest, Gamescom Opening Night Live, where they feel bloated or a lot of the announcements just don't really hit hard. And this year in particular did not feel great. There are some good game announcements that stick out and are stuck between here, and it's great. For example, this Murals game looked really cool. I was hyped for Mega Man Dual Override new trailer, stuff like that. Excited for Witcher fans to get a remaster and a new expansion. FF7 Revelation looking good, stuff like that. But what's happening with these events, because they're at least 2 hours long, I believe, both Summer Game Fest and Gamescom are 2 hours long. I think Game Awards is 3 hours long. Ignore Domino's, we don't care. Although, now I'm hungry. They got me. It's one of those things where it's like, there's so many other slop games, and in this case, quite literally slop, that inundate and just affect the entire viewing experience, where it just feels gross. And so what happened at the very beginning of the event, I'm not going to play the audio, but very early on here in the event, we had Jeff kind of on stage talking about, you know, developers and being, and he had a whole discussion, which was nice to see him address it, of the fact that, you know, they were on stage and acknowledging that there were a lot of layoffs and RAM prices were increasing the amount of money consumers are spending. That lasted about 10 seconds, and then he has a but. There's a lot of developers still making really cool games, which is true. I'm not saying that's not true. However, the games that he then decides to showcase, we will get into here, and we'll get into the factual ones that we know of. There's a lot of AI games in this list. And what do I mean by that? First of all, you probably know this by now if you're watching this channel for a little bit. I don't support generative AI in games in any part of the development process, especially when it comes to creating assets in the game. But I don't want it in the game. I don't. Personally, I don't. A lot of these games have generative AI used in some way, shape, or form. And you have the situation of people saying, oh, well, that's just standard these days. Everybody does it. That is false. But there's a lot of studios, especially in the AAA industry, that are indeed using it. There's a lot of indie studios that aren't. So by kind of saying that everybody's using it, you're overgeneralizing and kind of shutting out a lot of indie studios that are, quite frankly, against it. And we'll get into some examples later. But I just want to take a quick look here and kind of go to the page here on Steam. They have a Steam page listed up for Gamescom, the heart of Gamescom. Get ready for exciting games, the heart of gaming in Germany. All right, so here's our list of pretty much all these games that had some sort of announcements or were shown off related somehow to the show of Gamescom. And a bunch of these, you know, are fine games, you know. Mugenics, Stage Tour was kind of fun to bring back that Guitar Hero Rock Band era. Tides of Annihilation was interesting. You know, some of these games looking through. Cool. Let's take a look at, oh, I don't know. How about Ion 2? Let's just take a look. You know, look through the page. Okay, Ion 2. Okay. NC, publisher, developer, NC. Okay, okay. Oh, what's this? AI generated content disclosure. Some in-game assets were created with the assistance of AI tools. All right, bye. Ignore that. What else do we have? Let's see. Worms was interesting. Rayman, Valor Mortis looks very cool. Roller Coaster Tycoon coming back. There's been some things about 1666 Amsterdam. I'm only going to do things that are confirmed here. Okay, let's see. I'm actually curious about this one. I think this one's safe. Yeah, okay. That one was weird, though. I didn't like how that game looked. Oh, I don't know. Let's look at PUBG Deadnet, a new multiplayer FPS set in 1990s Cascadia from PUBG developer. Oh, look at that. AI-generated content disclosure. Developers describe how their games use AI-generated content like this. AI tools to help develop some in-game content. Super vague. Thanks for disclosing it to begin with. I mean, that's nice that you're optionally sharing that information with us. We appreciate that. To not play your game. I don't know. Let's take a look at... not that I have my own thoughts. Train SimWorld 7. Surely a train simulator game would never use generative AI. Like, there's no reason... Oh, look at that. We are utilizing 11 Labs text-to-speech tool to generate some voiceover elements. This is utilizing features such as train modules, as well as platforming and onboard train announcements. All right, train announcements, big part of the game. Using AI generative stuff. All right, no thanks, I'm good. Like or Die. Oh, that's a weird, funky name. Definitely couldn't be AI-generated art with that banner right there. No way this is AI. Oh, look at that. Generative AI tools were used for auxiliary purposes and production of some assets. Yeah. I mean, this was one of the trailers I saw, and I'm like, this is 100% AI. Oh, look. It's NC. The same developer that developed... What was that game before? Ion 2. Oh, but no... Oh, there is. Never mind. I thought there wasn't for a second. Okay, never mind. Ignore that. Crazy Taxi. Oh, Sega. Crazy... We already know what this is. We already know about this one. Yep, there it is. That's so gross. I hate fucking Crazy Taxi using that. Okay, let's look at this Project Zeta. Oh, look, AI generated. So here's my point. It's not all the games. It's not even half of the games. As far as we know, there are a lot of studios that don't disclose their AI usage. Smartly do not disclose their AI usage because we might have to take them at their word that they don't use it. Or if they don't mention it at all, that's not going to stop people necessarily. But my point is that a really big chunk of the games shown at Gamescom Opening Night Live straight up are confirmed to be using generative AI. There's been other cases of, like, I know there's been discussions about, like, 1666 Amsterdam, Blood of the Dawnwalker, stuff like that, that might be potentially utilizing something. But I don't know if that's outright confirmed, so I'm not including it here. You can let me know in the comments below if there's been any confirmation there. Either way, as someone who's not a fan of generative AI content in games, this feels gross. Because on the one hand, Jeff's communicating a message of, oh, we support developers, we want developers to be creating cool games, we'd like to showcase off these games made by these developers. The industry sucks, but look at all these games. When maybe a quarter of the announcements are confirmed to be using generative AI, I don't know about you guys, but that just feels kind of gross. That doesn't really line up exactly with what's going on. Like, Jeff acknowledged the layoffs for 5 seconds and then moved on to other stuff. And it feels weird to me. Speaking of AI, get that DuckDuckGo AI out of here. I turn that shit off all the time. It's one of those things that's like, it just feels gross. And I know I've talked about AI on this channel before, and I'm not a fan of it in games. Because to me, games are art. Games require a lot of hard work and dedication. And to be honest, when you're using generative AI in your game, to me, that feels lazy. It doesn't feel like a tool. It feels like you're shortcutting. With the example I've already mentioned with Crazy Taxi World Tour, why do you need generative AI for a Crazy Taxi game? Like, it's not like it's an open world big RPG, which a lot of these studios are using it for those games. I'm like, sure, maybe you shouldn't be developing that grand of a game in the first place, but, you know, that's beside the point. With Crazy Taxi, why the fuck are you using generative AI? So it just feels gross. It feels like mixed messaging from Jeff. It really feels like Jeff just taking the paycheck. This year's Gamescom Opening Night Live, to be fair, ONL, I feel like has always been, like, low-key the worst of the 3 events in terms of announcements in general. There's been some, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's good announcements coming out of these events, but compared to Summer Game Fest and the Game Awards, the announcements tend to be generally the worst of the 3. And I think this is the biggest showcase of that, where there's just a bunch of slop thrown at you for 2 hours. I genuinely felt like I wasted my time. I'm really glad I didn't live react to this. I just put it on in the background as I was working remotely. I should have honestly just waited and reacted to the Mega Man trailer separately. But, you know, I sat through it and did it, and I'm like, man, this just felt so stupid. It's such, I don't know. I've been getting fatigued by these events for a while now, but this might be the straw for me. It's like, here's the thing. I love being with chat, especially for the Game Awards, and reacting to those. Those are usually a fun time. And I think I'm still going to watch the Game Awards because of the award part specifically. And I'm sure there's going to be some good announcements in there as well. SGF, we'll see. I'm done with Gamescom opening night live. Like I said, no shade to Gamescom itself. I mean, I guess a little bit of shade for going on with these announcements here for these games during this presentation. I don't even know what the hell this game is. So it's the situation of just like, I don't think I'm going to watch Gamescom ONL in the future. I just don't see a reason to when they're going to be highlighting this side of the industry. When Jeff is on stage acknowledging the layoffs, acknowledging the increase in RAM prices, and acknowledging that developers are losing their jobs, to then promote games that are using technology that replaces those developers, quite frankly, it feels gross. It doesn't feel, oh, that's Crafton, that's 100% AI. No, we don't have it confirmed, but almost guaranteed. It's just, it feels so gross. We're in an era of games where you have to be doing research for every single game, every single developer, every single publisher to know whether they support generative AI or not. If you're like me and you don't like that in your games. If you don't care, if you don't mind, if you're like, cool, sure, then whatever, you're fine. This is the event for you. For a lot of us who want to see just cool games be revealed and announced, this is not that kind of event. And Jeff's trying to play both sides here, and I'm worried he's going to alienate both. I shouldn't say worried. I feel like that could happen. I really do, especially for this specific Gamescom opening night live event. I don't see people wanting to tune into these events. I mean, people are already getting fatigued and stopping watching. The Game Awards, I think, will always be a big deal, and that's probably the one thing that's going to keep them going. Probably have Summer Game Fest at least for a little bit. But it's one of those things that's just, I don't know, man. It just feels gross. It feels like mixed messaging on Jeff and the team side about how they support developers and then showcase all these games that are upending developers, and, you know, they're just trying to get a pay cut. A paycheck is what it is. We had 2 Hoyoverse games. Hoyoverse known to be using AI. I think one of them was confirmed to be using AI. That one wasn't on the list on Steam, but still. It's like one of those things that's like, I don't know, man. It just feels gross. I want to end this video on a more positive note, though, right? We have these events that showcase predominantly AAA, maybe even higher AA games. Some indie games here and there, for sure. You know, some high-quality, well-made indie games, but they tend to be few and far between these days. On the flip side, we should be, if you're like me and you're in my boat, pay attention to indie games more. There's a lot of amazing indies coming out that are not using generative AI in their production. A lot of indie studios are against generative AI, which doesn't surprise me considering they tend to be better at scoping their games out and budgeting certain things. AAA games these days are going for everything above and beyond, and it feels like they're bloated games, and they're also using generative AI to create that bloat. And so if you're not a fan of that, I have a list for you. Shout out again to Aftermath, as always. This was about a month ago, and hopefully it'll be updated continuously. A list of all the video game studios that refuse to use generative AI. There are some notable ones on here. There's also a lot of small teams that I had not heard of before this list, like Abandoned Sheep, made Schrodinger's Cat Burglar, Alien Fruit Games, Apparition Games. This article will be linked in the description below, by the way. The Beauty Cult, Blendo Games. Skin Deep Quadrilateral Cowboy Team does not use generative AI. They're just, quite frankly, against it. Blue Bottle Games. Let's see who else. Can't get enough. I want to see if there's any more very notable ones here. And you can let me know in the description below, or the comments below, if you've played any of these games. Unbeatable Team, D-Cell Games, Unbeatable from last year. Shout out. Hamster. The Warframe Studio, Digital Extremes, and Soulframe as well. Probably the closest we have to a big, I mean, I would argue Warframe maybe is borderline AAA, more like high AA, but they refuse to use generative AI. Dog in the Machine, downstream games, but this whole list is constantly being updated. Finji, publisher of Night in the Woods, publisher of Tunic, and their game publisher of 868 Bag, usual June coming out soon, I believe. Fuzzy Ghost, Gray Alien, made Forbidden Solitaire. So there are some notable indie studios here that are straight up just against the technology. And so if this is what you're looking for, the Goodbye Volcano High team, Dandelion Void, I know there's a couple more. I want to Necrosoft Games, who made Demon School. But yeah, there's a bunch here. Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mission 1 is crazy. I've heard of that title. It's a crazy one. I know there's a couple more on here that are pretty well known. Oh yeah, the Ours at the Jewel of Faramore. Strange Scaffold, there you go. They're also very recognizable. Of course, they helped with Cairn recently. But yeah, so you can see there's a whole list of these studios. Unfortunately, not a ton of them are coming out and saying outright that they're against generative AI, but it's good to see some studios come out and just be like, listen, these are the companies that aren't using them. You can trust these studios to not be using that kind of technology in their games. And if you care about that, there you go. And honestly, we're in a day and age, to wrap up this video, where events like Gamescom, Opening Night Live, are essentially trying to force generative AI developed games to become the norm. And it's up to us as consumers to support it or not. So if you're against generative AI in games, don't buy these games. Don't even talk about them. Just be like, no, write it off and move on, right? Indie games, there are some probably using generative AI. I'm not going to say they're all not using it, but there are a lot of cases where those studios don't use it. And do your research. With AAA games, there are a bunch that still don't use it either. But definitely do your research into the developers, the publishers, the individual games, and decide if that's something you want to get into or not. You know, obviously, again, not everybody's against generative AI. I'm personally not a fan of it, and I don't like supporting projects that use it. And it just sucks to see big events. I mean, again, Gamescom Opening Night Live, out of the 3 events, is probably the least prolific. Gamescom itself is huge, so again, they're probably having some of these games on display. But to have these big Jeff Keighley events, which are, I mean, at this point, probably the biggest game trailer showcase event now, besides like Nintendo Directs or something, it sucks to see these generative AI games have such a massive platform. And, you know, we're gonna have to be more careful going forward. And honestly, like, even if you don't like these events, just, you know, let's not watch them. Let's push back. Let's say, nope, we're not a fan of this, and don't watch them. Don't give them the time of day. Don't give them the views, you know? If you want to support the games, fine, whatever. You know I saw some comments that were like, so you're not going to support a game made by developers just because it had generative AI in it? Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of the situation we're in, where, yeah, sure, you're supporting developers by buying a game. In the long run, you know, they're already getting paid for their paychecks when developing the game, but in the long run, sure, if a game sells better, they're probably going to be better off for the development team. But at the same time, a lot of devs don't want to use this, so push back. You get to decide where you spend your money. You don't have to spend your money supporting developers if you don't want to support them. If you don't like the kind of stuff they're using to make these games, don't buy them. This doesn't have to be this pity party of we have to support the developers no matter what. No. Show your support for a game if you like it. If you don't like it, don't. We have that power as consumers. And so it's this case of, like, support the projects you want, but don't feel forced to support everything if it goes against your beliefs, your morals, your ethics, especially when it comes to stuff like generative AI. And don't support shows like this if you don't like the kind of content they're having. I'm probably not going to watch Gamescom Opening Night Live going forward. I don't see myself doing that. The other 2 events, we'll see. You know, for now, not a fan of how they're doing this. It's big platforms like these shows are trying to push generative AI as the norm. We get to decide what the norm is or not. Shareholders, stakeholders, these companies, these executive C-suites can try to push norms. At the end of the day, you get to choose what you buy or not. Your purchases are running these businesses. You get to decide whether you buy a game or not. So vote with your wallet. That's all I'm going to say. That choice comes down to you. With that, though, that's going to do it for this kind of rant video about Gamescom and the state of the industry, AAA industry specifically, as a whole. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Gamescom opening night live this year and previous years. What do you think about Jeff's shows? What do you think about all of these just AI slop games being shown on this big of a stage in this amount, in this quantity, I should say? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, I will catch you all on the next video or live stream. And until then, again, vote with your wallet. Support games that really mean a lot to you. I will see you later.